This is Charlie Rose.
The two primetime presidential debates between the Democratic candidates on Wednesday and the Republican candidates last night opened a series of debates between now and New Hampshire's February 1st primary, while the Democratic candidate, Vice President Gore, and former New Jersey Senator Bill Bradley focused on the theme of leadership. The Republican debate, dominated by Texas Governor George W. Bush and Arizona Senator John McCain, focused on tax cut plans and campaign reform.
If we had to rely on actually being in the living rooms, if we had to rely on actually debating the details of the policies, not just once every while, but twice a week, every week until the nomination is decided, I think we might have a chance to really elevate the tone of our democracy. So I mean it seriously.
No, you know, Al, your underdog pitch brings tears to my eyes.
Well, we're trying. I hope that my upset victory brings tears to your eyes on February 1st.
The reason why I've worked so hard for campaign finance reform, because all this money washing around Washington and all these uncontrolled contributions taint all of us. No matter what we do, we are under a cloud of suspicion. And I am one of those as well. And that's why I've fought so hard and will continue to fight so hard to clean up this mess and return the government back to the people of this country.
I think my objection with John is not how he's conducted himself as chairman of the Commerce Committee. My objection is he's proposing a campaign funding reform that will hurt Republicans and hurt the conservative cause. He's asking us to unilaterally disarm, which I will refuse to do.
Joining me now from Durham, New Hampshire for a roundup of the first two debates of Campaign 2000, Richard Berke, political correspondent for the New York Times. Thank you for coming, for joining us, Richard.
Glad to be here, Charlie.
What has changed because of these debates, if anything?
Well, I think we're seeing it's really crunch time right now, 3 or 4 weeks before these first people have a chance to vote in these races. And I think the candidates have a lot at stake. We have two very competitive races between Bradley and Gore and McCain and Bush. And I think they recognize that, and they're trying to tighten their performances. I think the candidates are more apt to go after one another. I think these forums have been much more lively than they were late last year because there's little time and a lot at stake.
Was there in the Democratic debate a clear winner?
I wouldn't say that. I think if you've talked to voters, or I talked to voters afterwards, and what they say is it depends sort of where you start from. I mean, the Bradley people say they like Bradley. The Gore people say they like Gore. It's really hard to say. I mean, you can pick apart their performances, and I could say I think Bradley looks increasingly relaxed, but he also had to. He was criticized earlier, or last year at least, for not being on the defensive enough, or being too much on the defensive and not being out there responding to Gore and to Gore's attacks. And I think we saw a feistier Bradley, but I also think he appeared relaxed and sort of going with the flow. And I think Gore made a point of being a little less anxious. In the last debate last year, he was just jumping on Bradley every chance he had, and you could hear him audibly sighing, you know, when he didn't like a comment Bradley made and so forth. I think he toned it down a little this time because of the criticism that he was a little over anxious. So I think they're refining their performance skills a bit.
Having said that, and knowing that there is time between now and the voting, is there a clear lead for Bradley or Gore at this moment?
I think in New Hampshire, the polls show it's still neck and neck. I think it could go either way, and that's why it's become so competitive. I mean, I think anything could happen, and these debates, when you ask about a winner or a loser, I mean, neither candidate has made any huge gaffe or hit any incredible home run, but they've both shown they have vastly different styles in how they present themselves. If you stand back and look at their views on the issues, they're not that far apart. They both say, for instance, you know, they want health care for all, but Bradley says it's doable sooner than Gore says it's doable. Yeah. So their general goals are the same. It's just a matter of styles and approaches, I think.
Well, I've listened to these debates, and I wonder for a voter who's paying attention to this even more than I might, are they picking up on the nuances of this debate, and can they, without careful study, figure out who is presenting the best plan for them with respect to what is emerging as an issue, health care?
You know, I don't know. I mean, the voters I speak with sometimes say they're even confused by whose plan does what. And I think what it is, Charlie, more is a matter of style and how they present themselves. When I've talked to voters, they don't say, you know, I like Bradley because his plan would do X or Gore's would do Y. It's more about how they come across. Because fundamentally, you stand back, they're both espousing very liberal positions on a lot of things, on everything from health care to gays in the military. In fact, they both were asked in this debate this week, you know, what about the liberal label? And neither of them ran away from it. They didn't embrace it, but they said, call me whatever you want. And, you know, can you imagine Bill Clinton saying that in 92 when he ran? So they're really fighting for the you know, liberal base of this party.
Speaking of gays in the military, because of this focus on whether you would appoint a chairman of the Joint Chiefs who had this view or that view, is that going to be an issue for the rest of the Democratic fight?
I don't think it'll be an issue among Democrats because they both agree on it, but I think...
Well, they don't say the same thing, though. I mean, Gore seems to go further by saying, I will not appoint a chairman who has, who's opposed to, or who favors this program or that policy. And Bradley seems to say, tell me if I'm wrong, you're there, Bradley seems to say, look, you know, anybody I appoint is going to believe as I do about gays in the military.
The way I saw it, even though Gore was more explicit about it, I think they have fundamentally the same position. They're both saying we would not have our appointees opposed to our firm view about allowing open gays in the military. I didn't think the distinction was enough to make a big difference to create any tension between the two. I think when this issue will come up is the Republicans will bring up, no matter who the nominee is, you can be sure that's an issue that will resurface in the general election. Which is an interesting point.
Is the battle between these two candidates on the Democratic side as fierce as it's going to be, because are they going to have to stake out positions to the left that will endanger them in the general election campaign, and is gays in the military one of those positions?
I think so, and I think that's always the case when you have a competition like this. I think Al Gore would have preferred not to have, obviously, any competition going into this whole election. His aides were hoping he would be unchallenged and he could sort of steer a middle course and run sort of a general election campaign, a general election strategy. That's what he tried to do at first until Bradley started coming on strong. The Bradley challenge has forced him to move to the left, just as the competition on the Republican side has scrambled the Bush strategy a bit, because Bush was running a general election campaign appealing to voters in November. He's still doing that to some extent, but for instance, when the gays question came up yesterday, he went out of his way to say that, you know, I'm not a moderate on this issue, you know, I'm against, you know, gay marriage and so forth. He didn't go as far as Gary Bauer and Steve Forbes and Alan Keyes wanted him to go, but he went farther, I think, than he would have liked because of the pressure in his own primary fight.
He also was very specific. Let me stay away from Republicans for a second. I want to stay with the Democrats for a moment, and I'll come over to the Republican debate in a second. I read a UPI story today in which said that there was a WCVB television Boston Herald report saying that Bradley now, polling, had a clear lead and that registered Democrats were deserting the vice president. Does that resonate with you? Does that poll have credibility? Have you heard about it?
I don't know, Charlie, about that specific poll. The way I look at these right now is there's so many polls here, and they all say one thing. They all suggest a very competitive race. I mean, I've seen polls that show, dead heat one day, one's up one day, one's up the next day. So I tend to sort of look at them as a group and not at one single poll. I mean, let's wait and see. I mean, the fact is, it's a very competitive race, and you talk to both campaigns, and they, in their frank conversations, could see it going either way.
You think it's going to be decided on questions like leadership and comfortableness and those things rather than specific policy positions? Yes.
That's my sense, Charlie, and Bradley was just saying that the other day. He was saying, it's not so much our positions, even though there are differences, but it's how we come across. And I really think so, because you look at polls that show there isn't one dominant issue here. And when you look, plus there isn't one area of huge disagreement between the two of them. I mean, they're fighting over health care, but their general goal is the same. It's just how they'd approach it. They're fighting over education, but their general philosophies are the same. So there aren't that many differences between the two of them, and the differences are in style and approach and manner. And I think when the voters see their ads and hear them speak and see their debate performances, my sense is, and from talking to voters, is that's what's going to count. I mean, who knows what the next few weeks will hold, but that's my sense right now.
Turning to the Republicans, John McCain had a story that was covered in the New York Times, in your newspaper this week, about a letter that he had written, or somebody on his staff had written, for Mr. Paxson, having to do with television stations and having to do with issues before the FCC. All, I assume, Senator McCain says he would have done for any constituent. Is that story hurting him?
Well, it's put him on the defensive, and the danger for him with that story is the centerpiece of his campaign is that I'm John McCain, the campaign finance reform guy. I'm the one to go to it. It's a message that has great appeal in a state like New Hampshire. These revelations raise questions about that and puts him on the defensive. It's too early to know how much it will hurt him, but it certainly doesn't help. I mean, he was peppered with questions about it at the debate this week, and he responded by just smiling through it and being very approachable and available to reporters, all week to talk about it. He also doesn't want to renew any questions about his temper, so he's trying to sort of handle it as best he can and say, look, this was very reasonable what I did, but yes, the whole campaign finance system is so messed up and that we're all soiled by it, and that's why I'm this crusader for it. So I think it's too early to tell the damage, but it certainly doesn't help. Governor Bush, you could tell, just is sitting back enjoying this. He didn't even have to engage McCain on that. In fact, he resisted engagement in the debate and saying, look, I'm not going to comment about John McCain's performance as chairman of the Commerce Committee. My concern is that his campaign finance proposal would be bad for the conservative cause, be bad for the Republican Party. That enables him to sort of get in a little dig at McCain, but look like he's taking the high road in terms of not jumping on him for any personal campaign finance irregularities. How did
Bush do in the debates?
I think Bush is steadily improving with every debate. I mean, at the beginning, he seemed very programmed at the early debates, the first debates last year, very programmed. He would recite, full sentences from his stump speech, the stump speech that he's been reciting around the country for months. And I think people could tell he wasn't very spontaneous. He looked uncomfortable. And, you have to feel for him to some extent, because he was up there as the front runner being attacked, by, five rivals. But I think he's steadily gained, some confidence. I think he's improved. I think you don't see the same canned answers that we saw before. And he's been a little feistier and a little more taking on John McCain a little more than he did before. I mean, in the past debates, they were like, two old buddies praising one another. I think now that we've come down to, this crucial, intense period and the competition is so tight, you can see a little tension, or more than a little tension between them.
The argument is that both McCain on the Republican side and Bradley on the Democratic side both have to win New Hampshire in order to continue, in order to have a shot at the nomination. Do you buy that?
Yeah, I buy that. I mean, I asked one of Bradley's aides, I said, what if he loses New Hampshire? Can he go on? And the aide just was speechless, couldn't give me an on-the-record answer, because they have staked so much on the state. McCain particularly, his whole campaign has been a New Hampshire campaign, and where they've taken off in the polls particularly is in this state. So if they don't win here, what happens? Where will they have momentum to go on? I don't think they would drop out if they lose here, but it's hard to see, it's hard to build a scenario of, say, if McCain loses here, how will he have the strength to continue in New Hampshire, Arizona, other states? His campaign is saying, we'll do it because we'll build on the momentum from New Hampshire. Bradley has a better organization and more money to stay in longer. So if he loses in the state, it's not quite as devastating. But I think they both need to win here, and I think I think it also depends on sort of what the outcome is, how close the outcome is, obviously.
And how people read it, and what's the spin coming out of the victories, or the remembering that Clinton came in second and got a big spin out of it.
Right. A lot of this is expectations. I mean, McCain, for example, is opting out of competing in the Iowa caucuses, but what if he, his message takes off anyway? People watch him in debates, and what if he gets 20%? That could be the story out of Iowa. I'm not saying that'll happen, but it could be, and that could be the news, and that could help him in New Hampshire. You never know.
Yeah, and Bradley could do better than is expected in Iowa, as it appears, because he's spending a lot more resources there than he planned to in the beginning.
Right.
So far, any sense of how endorsements will play? You had Senator Kennedy endorsing Al Gore, and you had Ms. Dole endorsing George W. Bush.
Traditionally, particularly in a state like New Hampshire, endorsements don't mean a whole lot. People are pretty independent-minded. But I think that the Dole endorsement is interesting because she did bring into the party when she ran a lot of new young voters, a lot of women. And, I think her endorsement, if she's out there campaigning and identified with George Bush and makes an effort, I think it could help. I don't think, greatly, but I think it can help. With Kennedy, I think the news would have been more striking had he endorsed Bradley, because it would have been a sign of, an established party figure, party elder, sort of going with the insurgent, and I think that would have given a lot of steam to Bradley, suggesting he really could win, and that Gore is not the inevitable nominee. Not that that would have happened, but I think that sort of thing would have had a much bigger impact than Kennedy going with Gore. I think the Kennedy endorsement also does show the extent to which Gore and both candidates are really appealing to the liberal wing of the party.
Thank you so much. I know you've got a deadline. We appreciate you taking time off to this continuing series of updates on this political season. Richard Berke.
Glad to be here.
Richard Berke from the New York Times. We'll be right back. When Paul Thomas Anderson was 7 years old, he is said to have written in a notebook, "My name is Paul Anderson. I want to be a writer, producer, director, special effects man. I know how to do everything, and I know everything. Please hire me." His words have proven prophetic. By the time he was 17 years old, he made a film short that a decade later became Boogie Nights. That 1997 film earned 3 Oscar nominations and catapulted him to fame. Today, he is credited with being at the forefront of a new generation of young auteur filmmakers breaking from Hollywood convention. His current film, Magnolia, continues in that tradition, and here is a trailer from the film.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a line to you from an opera. I want you to give me that line back in the language in which the opera was originally written. And for a bonus $250, you can sing it.
I'm Stanley Spector. Willa Cather, Thomas Kidd, Jean-Baptiste Beauclerc Molière.
and Jimmy Gator.
Live from Burbank, California.
First question for 25. This French playwright and actor joined the Béjart troupe of actors.
I'm Quizkid Donnie Smith. I used to be smart, now I'm just stupid.
I'm Earl Partridge.
I have a son, you know.
You do?
Find him.
I'm Frank T.J. Mackey. What did he say? Because I am not going to take care of him. What does he want?
I'm Linda Partridge. I took care of him through this, Alan. What now, then? Me and him. Do you understand? There's no one else. No one else.
No. I'm Phil Parma. See, this is the scene of the movie where you helped me out.
I'm Rose Gator.
You come home soon after the show. I love you.
Love you too.
I'm Claudia Wilson Gator.
Now that I've met you, would you object to never seeing me again?
I'm Officer Jim Curring. My life is very stressful, and I'd hope to have a relationship that is very calm and undemanding and loving. So if you are this person, please leave me a message at box number 82.
Life is getting shorter. I can't bring myself to set the scene, even when it's approaching torture. I've got my routine.
This is not an easy job. I have to take everything and play it as it lays. Sometimes people need a little help. Sometimes people need to be forgiven. And that is a very tricky thing on my part, making that call. But you can forgive someone, well, that's the tough part. What can we forgive?
Was that unclear?
Kind of.
Oh, God.
Magnolia has been named one of the top 10 films of 1999 by both Rolling Stone magazine and the Wall Street Journal. I am pleased to have the director back on this broadcast. Welcome back.
Thanks a lot.
Congratulations. This
Thank you
is getting a lot of attention.
It's working.
What's this movie about?
None of us could figure it out, you know, and it wasn't like someone could figure it out and someone else didn't agree with it. It was really just well, it's too hard to describe, so let's just say here's who's in it, these are the characters, and, you know, I mean, I could probably go on forever about what it's about, but, you know, you'd hate me in the morning.
All right, well, that's true. But let me just bring several things to the table. First of all, you said you have said in this movie everything you wanted to say about this sort of particular subject.
Yeah.
The movie's called Magnolia. Magnolia is the name of a boulevard in San Fernando Valley. Right?
Yeah.
Why the title Magnolia?
Well, there's
other
that.
than the fact that it's a boulevard in San Fernando Valley.
There's that, and on top of that, you know what happened is I had the title first, you know, and you start to sort of go, why is Magnolia sticking in my head? Why do these letters look so nice to me? And it is a boulevard, but I started to research a couple different things, and something that came up was the Magnolia, which is this mythical place above the firmament where stuff goes and hangs out, apparently. You know, so a ship is lost at sea, you know, and then an anchor falls down at some farmer's barn in Iowa, you know. Apparently the ship has been up in the Magnolia for a while, hanging out, and then it dropped its anchor sort of 20 years later. So that sort of weird sort of, you know, link, maybe, so I said, well, okay, this is starting to make sense.
What's this movie about?
You know what it's about? All right, you got me. I'll tell you what it's about. Here's what it's about. It's about parent-children relationships, you know, and how that informs who you are, who we are. It's about how you grow up and how that affects who you are.
Okay, now let me
Did I do a good job?
Well, you're getting there, but not quite. I mean, what's interesting about this is A, your skill, B, and B, you did say, you said you poured everything you wanted to say about this particular subject matter into this film.
Yeah.
What we have in this film, 8 stories, 9 characters, 2 dying men.
Yeah.
People who are affected by that death.
Yeah.
A nurse, a trophy wife. We have a sex guru, brilliantly played by Tom Cruise. We have a policeman. We have a cocaine addict. We have all these characters.
They're all there.
And their stories kind of connect.
Yeah.
Someone said this is about American angst.
Yeah. That'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what? You know what happened? I just I'd said this before, but I did. I set out to write something really small and cheap after Boogie Nights. I wanted to just make a movie.
Small and cheap?
Yeah. I just figured the best thing to do here with all this sort of Boogie Nights stuff that was happening and sort of attention paid to me. It was really nice, but I thought I should do my job, you know, and my job is to just make movies. So I sat down and I started to write. And there was so much happening in my life at the time, and I was just going through so much. Sort of personal things, you know, that I just kept writing. I kept writing what was going on around me, whether it was me or people that I knew. You know, I sort of just ended up sort of vomiting out onto the page all the stuff that was around me. So that's what it's about. You know, that's what it's about. It's about me.
What part of this movie is about you?
All of it, and that's not being really all of it. I mean, you know. We all have families that we, you know, have to figure out and deal with and try and explore what went wrong or what's going on.
Is that what interests you the most, a sort of sense of the angst or the dysfunctionality of a life?
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Because that's where the interesting stuff is.
It's you know, I think that you know, families are just endless, juicy ammunition for great stories. You know, they're never going to let you down for good drama or good comedy.
But here's what else they say about you: is that they say in talking about you that you love your characters, and it's all on the screen. You know, you're not too critical of these people. You just show who they are.
Yeah.
And that this is a director who loves these characters, or a writer who loves these characters, right?
Yeah, and I think it's true. But I think it comes from the fact that when I write movies, I write them for very specific actors, and these actors are my friends: John Riley, Philip Baker Hall.
All right, well, stop. Let's talk about that because that's really interesting. John Riley plays the cop. All right, he was in Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
It's almost an ensemble.
Yeah.
But think about who you've got. I mean, you've got some of the hottest actors in the world in this movie. Start with Tom Cruise.
Okay.
How'd you get him?
He called me after he'd seen Boogie Nights, and that's the phone call from the President of the United States of movie land, you know? And because I wouldn't...
It doesn't get any bigger than that.
No, literally, it doesn't. You know, and what happened was, it was great, because I wouldn't have called him. I was a huge fan of his work, but it's that ungettable thing, you know, you just don't think, I'll never get Tom Cruise in my movie, so you just kind of think, well, maybe I should try and get somebody else. But he called me, he was a big fan of Boogie Nights, and so I was going to London to promote it, and I met him on the set of Eyes Wide Shut, and I sort of visited with him, and I got to meet Stanley Kubrick. It was sort of a wonderful thing. And so Tom and I just sort of chatted, and I was just starting to think of this character that he plays in the movie, and there's just something, just brought up the naughty side in me. I don't know what it was. I just sort of looked and I said, oh, I know exactly what to do here, you know? And so I wrote Frank T.J. Mackey the part for Tom. And sent it to him 8 or 9 months later. You know, I said, so let me go away. I'm going to write. I'll send you. I didn't tell him anything about it, but I said, let me go write this thing, and I'll send it to you. And so, you know, many months later, when he was finally finishing up Eyes Wide Shut.
Many years later.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I met him, and he'd been there for a year and a half already. Yeah. So 8 or 9 months later, I sent it to him. And it was one of those dream stories where, you know, you send it to him, and the day later, next day he calls and says, let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm yours. Let's make it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, but we spent 3 or 4 weeks really talking about, you know, sort of sniffing each other out, you know. I think he, you know, sort of, how do you like to work? How do you like to work? Okay, great, you know.
This is a long way from Mission Impossible.
Yes and no. I mean,
what's yes and what's no?
What's yes is the type of character, but no in that good acting is hard no matter what you're doing, and it's hard to make a movie, and it's hard to act, so it's all challenging.
And it's really hard to make a good movie that you want to make and an audience wants to see.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can make a good movie you like and want to make an audience doesn't want to see it. Sometimes you can make a movie that an audience wants to see.
I've been there. I've been there a couple times. I'll probably be there again.
So he says yes.
Yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
You had him before.
Yeah.
He's part of the ensemble.
Yeah, because I
can't be hotter than he is right now. Flawless. Ridley.
Ripley, right?
Ripley,
and,
I mean,
he's also in. He's in something else.
Yeah. But there's a guy who's coming.
So great, isn't it? It's an amazing thing to. I was such a fan of his since I saw *Scent of a Woman*, which is so long ago, and I sought him out, and I wanted. He was in my very first movie, and he was in *Boogie Nights*, and it's just amazing to watch someone who you were rooting for get to the point where you can now go to a studio and say, Philip Seymour Hoffman's in my movie, and they know. You don't have to say, the guy from, the sidekick friend, they know his name. And it's so great to me. And he's an actor who deserves it, too, who's worked his ass off for a long time, been around for a long time, working really hard. He's just the sweetest
And the
guy.
talent is you just see it. It just comes out of every scene.
For real. Every act. That was a great thing about Tom, too, is that Tom was interested, in being in the movie and working with me, and that's very... But he knew Phil Hoffman was going to be in his scenes, and that was that was a draw for Tom Cruise. I'm going to get to act with Phil Hoffman, believe it or not. I mean, that's how sort of respected
It says
Phil
something
Hoffman
about
is.
Cruise good. It says something good about Cruise.
Tom Cruise is the man. He really is. He's a pretty amazing individual.
Speaking of people who are hot, Julianne Moore.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you get her? She's got 3 movies out.
She's got 3 movies out. We had made Boogie Nights together, and I sought her out, through a friend of a friend. I would have tracked her down no matter what, through an agent or some sort of official way, but I got
to say, let's regroup, let's get the ensemble back together, plus we're going to add.
Oh, in terms of Magnolia, no. In terms of Magnolia, getting Julianne, it was from the get-go. I called Julianne, said, I'm starting to write. You're in it, so clear your schedule vaguely about a year from now, and that's what.
And she said yes, just like that, because of the respect she had for you and for Boogie.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, there's some sort of really great strokes here. Bill Macy is great playing the part he does. Jason Robards is great playing the part he does. But here's a fascinating stroke: is Henry Gibson. Who's seen Henry Gibson for a while?
Yeah, I know. But I sat down to write this part for Henry Gibson, thinking, I need to see Henry Gibson more, and I haven't seen him enough lately. He's so great, Nashville.
So you wrote that part with him in mind.
Mm-hmm. And then I got really nervous that maybe I haven't seen him around in a while because he doesn't want to work. Have I gone through all this and writing this part? I should have probably called him beforehand and said, "Can I write a part for you?" But I was prosperous enough to.
Here is a scene. The first scene is when John Riley, who plays Officer Jim, what's the character's name?
Jim Curring.
Jim Curring, Kurring. He's out on his first date with Claudia, who is the cokehead. Take a look at this.
I haven't been on a date since I was married, and that's 3 years ago. And Claudia, whatever you want to tell me, whatever you think might scare me, won't. And I will listen to you. I'll be a good listener to you if that's what you want. And I won't judge you. And I know I can do that sometimes, and I won't. And I can listen. And you shouldn't be scared of scaring me off or whatever you think that I think, and on. You should just say it, whatever it is, and I'll listen to you.
You don't know how stupid I am.
It's okay.
You don't know how crazy I am.
It's okay.
I've got troubles, okay?
I'll take everything at face value. I'll be a good listener to you.
I started this, didn't I?
Whatever it is, just say it. You'll see.
You want to kiss me, Jim?
Yes, I do.
This movie is 3+ hours.
Yeah.
Any qualms about that?
From
studio.
No, they were very, very nice about it, actually, because they knew by the script. The script was very, very thick. It was 190.
But no one said to you, come on. Movies today have to be 2 hours, not 3.
No, because they were really wonderful, and I was really upfront, saying it's going to be 3 hours, and they were wonderful in saying, okay, we're not going to tell you what to do. We'd love it if this was shorter, but so just make it as short as you can, as short as you want. Be comfortable with it, but know that it would be nice. But they were wonderful.
But they said, we trust you. You're our guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the word you see constantly in people writing about the film, Altman-esque.
Mm-hmm.
Do you buy that? Are you influenced by what you saw Robert Altman do?
Yes, but it's funny because I really was thinking a lot about Nashville when I wrote Boogie Nights. I was sort of going, blatantly either ripping it off or totally being influenced or whatever. But I think what happens is it's in my DNA, It's that I grew up watching those movies and seeing those movies. So, it's just informed me and informed how I want to tell stories. So I've learned from that, and hopefully I can bring something new to the table.
Take a look. But I think what it is, obviously, is it a style of movie making you like to tell a lot of stories at one time?
Yeah.
And somewhere find out that the characters have some connection, or they are in fact, in the way you create the mosaic.
Right.
They have a body, they have a connection that you don't necessarily pick up.
Right. Well, I like it unique to this movie, and that's what I set out to do with this movie was, I mean, a very specific thing. It's not as if I'm such a massively dedicated to ensemble movies. It truly was the idea with this movie, to have all of these different lives and try and see how they could either connect. Sitting down to write, knowing exactly how they'll connect, or sometimes discovering it myself. And the Altman-esque thing, there was somebody that said, you know, this is like Altman on amphetamines. So I appreciated that. So he'll smoke pot and I'll take amphetamine, you know.
All right. Roll tape. This is Julianne Moore and, as we said, Phil Hoffman, in which she tells him, who is the nurse, remember this, that she is leaving Earl.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I slapped your face. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. Can you forgive me?
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay, I'm gonna turn away and walk away and not look at him and not see my man, my Earl, and tell him it's okay. I'm okay. Tell him thank you for taking care. Everything's okay with me. And I know.
You have this reputation, and it's flattering to you, of getting great performances out of actors.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things they say you do well.
Mm-hmm.
What's that about?
I think it's about the relationship that I have to the actor, you know, because most of us are friends, and there's just this accident that's happened or whatever it is. I don't know, that they trust me, you know, and I trust them. So, and what that means is we don't second guess what we're doing. It just becomes what you do. It's funny because someone was saying, you know, how do you get these performances? And I think that my first job is to be a really good writer to the actors. You know, to not describe it in the script. So many times you see so much description of what the character is supposed to be feeling and stuff in screenplays, and it's just a big mistake. It has to be done through dialogue and what they do. What are they going to do? Are they going to walk across the street? You know, then that's a character trait. You know, they're making that decision, and so the scripts that I write for them are very clean. They're sort of very clean of a lot of sort of flowery explanation of what they're supposed to be feeling. I think the actors really appreciate that. It lets them do their job. It enables them to just act, you know what I mean? And what happens is that I think because we've spent so much time sort of being drunk in front of each other and at parties and at family gatherings and these sorts of things, that everything, that a camera isn't exactly rolling a lot of the times, or it doesn't matter that the camera's there. I don't know if I've explained that exactly.
But you were saying that you create an atmosphere of openness and vulnerability and friendship, all of that.
Yeah.
That makes what happens on camera easy.
Well, I hope so. I hope so, because I think that I'm so in awe of what they do, and acting is such a hard job. I mean, it's really, really hard, and I'm a really big fan. First and foremost, I'm just a fan who's kind of excited to watch them be great, you know, and I think that they're just, that they appreciate that from me, and so it just ends up being really nice.
You think you can make a case that the best directors feel the way you do? And I've heard Robert Altman say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
In awe of actors. Because there's some directors, I suspect, who treat actors and believe actors are children, period.
Yeah, that is true. And I hear stories like that, and it always scares me, or it makes me feel bad, generally for these actors that I know who are my friends. But there's a little bit of voodoo magic in acting that I really don't understand. And I think every director is just a frustrated actor. Anyway.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, I know I am, and I would never admit
If you could
that.
be, you'd like to be up on the screen.
Well, no, because I could be.
Of course you can, because you make your own movie.
Right. I could certainly be there, but
Oliver Stone put himself in.
Oh, yeah? Is he good?
Any Given Sunday. Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah. No, I think that I'd just rather leave it to them, because like I said, there's that sort of voodoo magic thing that they do that I don't. That's precious. And when they do it well, boy, is it exciting to watch. It's so exciting to watch.
And do you know what it is, that voodoo magic, or you've just got it stimulated?
No, I don't know what it is, and I don't want to know. I just know it when I see it, and I know that if I'm a good fan and it's a great atmosphere, and the only direction I should really ever give to an actor is keep it simple, or that's good direction.
Don't go over the top.
Don't go over the top. Just because it's very easy to get carried away with a performance. You know what I mean? Whether you're crying, you can start to cry too much. It's just very easy to follow through on the emotion. Tom's stuff, all of Tom's stuff, is very sort of big in the first half of the movie. It's sort of grandstanding,
right.
and that character's so easy to get carried away with. And every once in a while, you just have to say it's okay. Just bring it down just a little bit. That's the job.
This is a 3-hour movie, so we want to show a lot of clips. This is a story, an interesting story about a game show, and you see this kid who is coming to the reality that this is more his father than it is him. The kid is played by Jeremy Blackman, another great casting stroke. And what you have is Bill Macy, who was a former contestant. And in this scene, you see Stanley entering the game show and being shown around by Cynthia, who is Felicity
Huffman,
who's
Bill Macy's wife.
real-life wife. Roll tape, here it is.
Okay. Busted my ankle there. You gotta have that makeup lady fix your hair, okay?
Okay.
Okay, it's really wet.
There you are.
Sorry we're late, Cynthia.
There you are. No. Oh, that's all right.
Got caught in traffic.
What's okay? How you doing, Stanley? I'm fine. Yes?
Yeah, you ready to go, go, go?
You know anybody's involved with that Alan Thicke thing, the Corey Haim thing, the terrorist in the high school
No.
demolition?
Where's Richard and Julia?
Oh, good. They're here. They're fine. They're in the dressing room. So we're all set. Okay. See you later.
Yeah, you go to it, handsome.
See ya.
Okay, buddy. Love you. Good luck, Rick. Hey, Peter. Dick. Sorry, Dick. He was ready to beat the record.
That was close.
There's cats and dogs out there. You've never seen the rain this bad since last year. He's a La Nina, El Nino. What? No bueno, no El Nino. Sorry, I'm late.
Listen, have I ever lied to you? What was your name again?
Amy, Mr. Jennings.
Oh, DJ Amy, right? Listen, trust me, stay focused.
Where's the news department at the studio?
It's upstairs.
Have you ever been there?
Oh, sure. Why?
Well, I was wondering about the weather department. I was wondering whether or not the weather people have outside meteorological services or if they have in-house instruments.
I can check on that for you. Maybe later we could take a tour.
Okay.
Sounds good? You asking about that because it's raining outside?
I guess.
So what do you do? Whatever's happening, that's what you look into? Something like that?
I don't know.
You don't know, huh? Well, it's not a bad way to be. Interested in everything that's going around. Wet is wet.
Let me talk about music in this film. Amy
Sure.
Mann.
Yes. I could go on forever. She's really just at the start of the movie. I think what had happened was that I had a million ideas floating around in my head, and she's a really close friend of mine, and just a great songwriter. And she had stuff lying around that whether B-sides or new stuff that she was working on, and it was something for me to latch on to, as a way for me to go, okay, somehow that makes sense to me, all these ideas buzzing around, and here's something to hold on to, Amy's songs. And I sort of set out at first to adapt her songs, thinking that I would adapt like you would adapt a book. I would just adapt these songs, and to a certain extent it could be called that. But it was really this first line of her song, "Deathly," and it goes, "Now that I've met you, would you object to never seeing me again?" And that was the start of it all. Just thinking, that's good. I'm going to steal that, and I'm going to write a movie.
What are you saying about pop culture in this movie? You know, it's about television. There's a little bit of network in it. I mean, you know, you got a television mogul played by Jason Robards who's dying. You know, there's his trophy wife. And
Yeah, I don't know. I don't.
I don't mean message, but just what is it that's inside of you that comes out here that is shown through relationships, but says something about and Cruise's character for sure.
Well, you know what's inside me is someone who's 29 years old who's grown up on movies and television. Do you know what I mean? So that's there on display is a sort of, I think, a sort of channel-changing mentality. Maybe that's why there's so many different stories. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of trying to, kind of in a way, reflect sort of TV's sort of information overload in a movie. You know, that's one thing that's at work.
If you looked at this movie at this moment, the one that is in the theaters today, it's the movie you wanted to make.
Exactly.
Is it the movie you set out to make?
Exactly. Yeah.
You did not at any point say, damn it, I've got these great episodes and these great movies and these great performances, and it's all great, but I don't know what to do with it. Where do I go for the last 30 minutes?
Yeah. No.
I mean, how do I have a climax here that brings it all together?
What are you? No, you know, the funny thing is what you're hinting towards is actually one of the first things that came into my brain.
How it comes together at the end?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not telling. You're not telling.
Yeah, I know. I'm not telling. So we're going to dance and never use.
But that's the first thing that came in your mind.
Well, it's one of the first things. Was that as a concept, that big sort of biblical or whatever it is. Hint, hint. I don't know. So it's not an afterthought. In other words, it's not an afterthought. What I thought I would do is write and write and write and write and write. And when it came time where I was written out, that's when what you're referring to would happen.
All right. Roll tape. This is a scene in which Phil is ordering groceries over the phone. Again, this brilliant actor, Phil Hoffman. Roll tape.
Think that.
Hi, I'd like to get an order for delivery.
Phone number?
818-725-4424.
Partridge?
Yeah?
What would you like?
I'd like to get an order of peanut butter, cigarettes, Camel Lights, water.
Bottled water?
No. You know what? Forget the water. Just give me a loaf of bread, white bread.
Okay.
And do you have Playboy magazine?
Yeah.
Okay, one of those. And Penthouse, the magazine?
Yeah.
Do you have that? Okay, one of those. And Hustler?
Yeah.
Do you have that?
Yeah, I said. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Do you still want the peanut butter bread and cigarettes?
Yeah? What?
The total is $31.90. 30 minutes or less.
Again, great performances. Cruise. There's a brilliant scene here where with all of his self-help guru confidence, he's unraveled by an interviewer.
Played by April Grace.
Right.
It was great. Yeah, that was fun stuff to write and really fun stuff to watch them act. And that's really just...
So what's happening there?
Well, she's come in and she's going to sort of dismantle him. She's a woman, so obviously she's got something there on him because all of his courses are about how to seduce women,
right.
how to basically to destroy women.
Right.
And so she's come in with that an agenda to destroy him, but sort of destroy him in a very, very, very personal way to catch him in a few lies that he's told. And it's rough. I think what's great about her performance and sort of what's sort of wonderful in those scenes is that she should nail him. You know, she should nail him. I mean, he's a liar and he's a bad guy for what he's doing, but the way that she does it is really delicate and it really appeals to his heart and smart. And you can see that she actually feels a little bit bad about having taken him down. There's a wonderful moment where she's such a great actress, April Grace. You just see this delicate moment where she says, boy, I needed to do this, and he deserves it, but I actually feel terrible. Because she reveals a pretty desperate and sort of terrible secret about him.
Roll tape, one last film. This shows Jason Robards when he tells Phil, who's a nurse, about his first love.
When high school at an end, what's that? What is that when it gets to the end?
Graduation.
No, the grade. What grade?
That's 12.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, so I went to her school for that grade 12. And we meet. She was fucking like a doll. Yeah. A beautiful porcelain doll. And the hips, the childbearing hips, you know that?
What does this take out of you, making a movie like this?
A lot of weight. Yeah. Physically, it takes so much out of you, and emotionally or in your head, it becomes. I think you start to forget a lot of stuff around you, unfortunately, or I have at least for the past year, sort of neglecting my life and friends or family, and just been so tunnel vision towards finishing.
You live at 18 hours, 20 hours a day.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a hard thing because you come home and you wanna be able to have dinner and talk with your girlfriend, but you just fall asleep, or it's so debilitating. And I don't want to complain because this is a great job to have, but you start to, now that it's over, I'm starting to look back at some of the pieces that I've dropped along the way of my life, and trying to figure out maybe a new way to try and do it, to be as dedicated and committed, but also to have a life,
It's been part of your life for how long? Since
about 2 years.
2 years. Been writing the script.
Yeah.
Do you want to direct anything that you don't write?
Not right now. I don't think so. I don't think so. Writing is too much fun. It's too wonderful and it's too solitary, and I enjoy that time so much that I need it, because when you go to make the movie, that's a group experience, and so you need the alone time. And so when I write, it's wonderful.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.